So as he tangles with the nation's foes, President Trump keeping his feud with the so-called squad alive tonight, tweeting this. Representative Tlaib wrote a letter to Israeli officials desperately wanting to visit her grandmother. Permission was quickly granted, whereupon Tlaib obnoxiously turned the approval down. A complete setup. The only real winner here is Tlaib's grandmother. He adds she doesn't have to see her now. Let's bring in former U.S. diplomat in the Obama administration, Brett Bruen, and the former Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence under President Bush 43, Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin. Gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Good to be with you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about what happened. This is part of the letter that she wrote, Congresswoman Tlaib, to the Israeli Interior Minister. I would like to request admittance to Israel to visit my relatives and specifically my grandmother, who's in her 90s. This could be my last opportunity to see her. She turned it down and then tweeted this. Silencing me and treating me like a criminal is not what she wants for me. It would kill a piece of me. I have decided that visiting my grandmother under these oppressive conditions stands against everything I believe in, fighting against racism, oppression, and injustice. So, General, she is making a statement by saying, no thanks.
Yeah, she is. Listen, I think it's important, Shannon, that we recognize that anti-Semitism is growing throughout the world. And the Congresswoman has been very anti-Semitic in her rhetoric as well as her social media. I think the Israelis had every right to deny her entry, and even when they relented and met her requirements to allow her to come in and see her grandmother, I think she showed her true colors there and making a publicity stunt out of that, too.
Brett, has this whole thing just gotten too political?
Well, I will say that the first casualty of this crisis is clearly credibility. Credibility, I agree with the general, for Congresswoman Tlaib, someone who on the one hand makes a personal plea to the Israeli government, asks for a humanitarian exception and receives it, but then turns around and does a political grandstanding move. And I think that really defies credulity. But on the other hand, the Israeli reputation, their credibility for being strong on democracy has suffered as a result of this decision as well. So both sides are losing.
Okay, let's turn to Afghanistan. We know this meeting today with Secretary Pompeo and a number of other Trump administration officials. As this thing is coming together, the release we had from the State Department said that they continue in close cooperation with the government of Afghanistan to work towards these goals of finding peace there. But there are plenty of skeptics tonight, among them Senator Lindsey Graham, the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and a close friend of the president, but not afraid to, be in conflict with him on issues like this. He says to trust the Taliban to control al-Qaeda, ISIS-K, and other radical Islamist groups present in Afghanistan as a replacement for a U.S. counterterrorism force would be a bigger mistake than Obama's Iranian nuclear deal. Generally has to know that's going to get the president's attention.
Yeah, look, Zal Khalilzad is a seasoned professional. He is a longtime diplomat. He was the American ambassador in Afghanistan, and if anybody can make any sense of all this and actually pull a deal together, it's probably Zal. He's very good at what he does. That said, I think it's also important to understand that nobody really speaks for the Taliban. Who are you making a deal with? It's sort of like when Fatah negotiates with Benjamin Netanyahu on behalf of Hamas in the West Bank, in the Gaza Strip. Nobody speaks for the Taliban as one voice. So I don't know that you can actually expect any kind of real negotiated settlement on this. But if anybody can do it, it'll be the emissary that is there now.
Well, Dan Petrus in the Washington Examiner, under the headline, "We don't need troops in Afghanistan to keep us safe from terrorism," writes this: Afghanistan's internal stability and politics are beyond Washington's control. The United States has no interest in getting stuck in the weeds of Afghan politics. The politics of Afghanistan are for Afghans to figure out. Brett, what do you make of what we've heard of the discussions and the fact that it seems aimed at making sure U.S. forces do not stay? Is there an argument for some contingency to be there in any performance mode?
How soon we forget. We are in Afghanistan because we were attacked from Afghanistan. And there is a clear and a present danger still in Afghanistan to the United States, to our allies. we need to stay, and if we leave, we need to get a good deal. Unfortunately, it seems like President Trump is in a rush to get a good talking point for his 2020 campaign. I think that's what we're seeing play out right now in Kabul. Unfortunately, he has also undermined Khalilzad when it comes to his negotiating position, because he has been too anxious, both publicly as well as privately, to get this deal.
Well, it is something he campaigned on, getting us out of a number of foreign incursions, so we'll see where this goes. Brett Bruen and General Boykin, thank you both.